All right. Welcome to the Elk Season Podcast, Season 3, Episode 6. It is February 22nd, 2024, and we are 189 days until Elk Season. And tonight on the Elk Season Podcast.
Oh, we got a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about fitness because you don't skip leg day. We've got vertical aeronautics. That's just a fancy way of saying helicopter ride, motorized vehicles as well. We talk a little bit about Probably could spend some more time talking about those things. Easter candy and dead animal salvage. Tell me how those two go together. Idaho fisheries and a little bit more. All that on the Elk Season Podcast. And more. All that and more.
No, you're fine. You're fine. That's all right.
No. All that and more on the Elk Season Podcast.
All that and more tonight on the Elk Season Podcast. Okay, so real quick, I want to give an update. I'm reading a book on fitness, and the book's called The World's Fittest Book, and it's about this guy who travels. It's immersive journalism. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
So he basically, as a journalist, he goes out and he looks at all these types of different trainings, but he also participates in all these different types of wrestling and weightlifting and workouts and exercises and crazy. And he comes to this determination that you can train for anything. You can train for anything. Yeah. He climbed a rope, a 20-meter rope, enough times to summit Mount Everest in 24 hours. And he trained himself to do it. If you ever climbing a rope is really hard. It tears up your biceps.
Never been successful.
I could climb a rope maybe 5 or 6 times before my biceps and my grip are just done. And this guy did it for 24 hours.
If I have ascenders, maybe.
Yeah.
But
it was nothing but grip. It was nothing but grip. And even under the gloves, his hands were just beyond blisters, beyond raw.
Yeah.
And it was for charity, and it was for an understanding of what training does and what you can do to train. And so my ideal training for elk season, right, would have how do you train for that? Oh my gosh. If I could spend the 100 days of summer doing something, even once a week, to train myself. And what I like to call it is Epic Sunday, because that Epic Saturday or Epic Sunday is what elk season feels like.
Yeah.
Right.
Because weekend warriors, it's
one day and you give it 194%.
Mount Bora.
It is over the top. Right. You climb Mount Mora every single week, all summer long. That's the equivalent of preparing for. Then elk season would be nothing.
Yeah, I almost feel like the elk would be at a disadvantage finally for me.
Right. Right. If you could train like that, and you should, because this guy ran a marathon while carrying a tree, like a giant 110-pound log on his back, like the entire 26, because he trained to do it. And he explained, if you train to do it, there's this old parable, I forget where from, of a young man who carries a baby calf into town, from his home into town every day. But within a year, in a short period of time, that calf is no longer a 70, 80 pound calf.
Yeah.
But
it's a good steak though.
But because you keep adding weight to your workouts, you get stronger. Your body adapts to the work you put under it. Yeah. Your body adapts to the stress that you induce it to. And anyways, it's 189 days until elk season. So you have 189 days to prepare for epic, long, hard days.
Yes.
Very long, hard days.
Yeah.
So
we take very fundamentally different approaches. Yeah. But that's the point. Figure out what it is that works for you. But the idea is do something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do the CrossFit stuff. But there's the CrossFit makes me a heck of a lot stronger, and it definitely adds cardio to what I'm doing. But I'm not training. You can take somebody and train them for for a triathlon, and they're not ready to climb Everest amount of ropes in ropes.
Yeah.
They're just not trained for that. So a very long duration hike, and we kind of do in the summertime when we go place cameras.
We usually kick our butts out there.
Yeah,
which is good. I love that.
It's hard to get out and do something that epic.
Yeah.
Every weekend though, but that is almost
agree.
what is needed.
That is what I would love to do.
Right. Same.
And
same.
it's on my to-do list. And so when I can get a chance, and if I hear that you're going to the mountains and I can sneak out, I'm like, hey, you have room in there, or can I just meet you at the trailhead, whatever? Because it's in my desire. I don't know. I'm trying to find the right language here. I just the pull to the mountains is strong for me.
And it doesn't feel like a workout.
Yeah,
it is a workout, but it doesn't feel like a workout.
No, it's. We've talked about this in earlier seasons of the podcast, where being out in nature, the randomness of what you experience takes your mind away from the difficulties. It gives your body the exercise you need. Mental health improves.
Yeah.
I have a noticeable improvement in my mental health whenever I come back from a good hike.
Yeah. So this book I'm reading, The World's Fittest Book, also has some.
Is it buff? Sorry.
The dude on it, is pretty buff. But he I lost my train of thought on that.
I'm so sorry. That was my fault. And you keep looking at your watch. Is everything okay? Are you
so
in a
I
hurry,
get little buzzes and announcements, and I don't know if I'm getting a text from somebody, and I
really
didn't get
irrelevant.
anything.
I don't need to poke my nose.
No,
but you actually
it's
bring
very
up a good
distracting
point
in conversation.
But the reasons why we look at our watches now are for very different reasons, and that's what I just kind of had to remind myself. I'm like, are you okay? Are you in a hurry? But it had nothing to do with that.
Nothing at all. In fact, it's when it'll do a little vibrate, and I'm like, oh, stupid thing. Which is funny because it's okay to look at your watch when you're driving, but not your phone. But I can get everything on my phone on my watch. And if it alerts me,
who says it's okay to look at your phone or your watch?
Well, I don't know.
It's the same kind of distraction your phone would have.
It is distracted driving. There is a law against having your phone in your hand, right? Most places there's a law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop most people.
It doesn't stop anybody.
Me?
You don't do it because of the law. You don't do it because it's dumb.
True.
It's distracting. Right?
Yeah.
I don't do it.
That's a good point.
I don't like to do it either.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
My experience was because I had a dumb moment.
Oh, really?
Not long after I got my first phone.
Yeah.
I thought I would be like, oh, well, maybe I should try to respond to this text. I hit the curb in front of the Jack in the Box. I swerved over 2 lanes of traffic.
Oh my gosh.
And when it was not a very busy time. It was actually at night.
So lucky. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm never doing that again.
It's not because of the law, though.
It was not. No, it was because
because it's a smart thing not to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and trying to read because I was desperate to get some reading done on my way to Pocatello one time.
Yeah.
Don't do that at 80 miles an hour.
No, that's a terrible idea.
It took me 2 words in that book to realize you're a dumbass. Anyway, you can fill in the blank.
I've done it too, though.
I never tried that again.
I've done it too. I have actually, but then what I ended up doing was recording, audio recording my lectures. And then just listening those back and forth from Pocatello.
I wasn't that smart. I wish I was that smart.
Yeah, that was a good one.
A lot of students are doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was to just hear the lecture again, and oh man.
Yeah, I record my lectures, and upon request, students can say, "Hey, can I get a link to today's lecture?"
Perfect.
And I can send them a link. So anyway,
so I got to go on a helicopter ride.
Okay.
So there's a guy at the gym, and his name's Greg Olson. He's a local realtor, really nice guy. He flew for the Navy.
Okay.
So a naval aviator, like Top Gun, and a really nice guy. He's working on the air show that's coming to Twin Falls in 2025.
Oh, very cool.
Where he says the Blue Angels will be back.
Oh.
So that's very exciting. And he asked my wife. He goes, "Hey, when the Blue Angels come into town, can we work out a workout session for them so they can come in and not be mobbed, and so they can use the back room to work out." So, anyways, he didn't hear from me, but the Blue Angels are going to be working out anyway.
Sweet.
So, anyways, he just recently got a helicopter license, and I feel really safe with him. He's really smart. He's very detail oriented. He flies his plane a lot. He travels all over the country, Alabama and Kansas. He told me he went and shot so many pheasants in Kansas. And he's like, dude, if you would have told me you liked pheasant, I'd have brought some back. And I'm like, pheasants, they're like chickens. They're perfect. Yeah.
I've always wanted to eat.
Oh.
Well, you know this. Upland game and pheasants. I've been interested in trying that stuff.
So anyways, he wanted to take me on my birthday, which was more than 6 months ago. And opportunities just never come up. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. And I'd never been in a helicopter before. But finally, all the stars aligned. And he called me and he's like, hey, are you doing anything right now? And it was just last Saturday.
Oh, cool.
And I go, I was editing the audio of a book I was reading.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, I need a break from this. So I went out with him. So we got to the Jerome Airport, and his buddy has a hangar out of the Jerome Airport, and there's 2 helicopters in there. And there's one, and it's really just this plastic bubble sort of front. And just a 2-seater, pretty small, a tri-blade. Yep. And interesting, the tri-blades, depending on what you're doing, right? The blades articulate this way, but depending on what you're doing, one blade will do this and the other blade will do that.
Okay.
And or 2 blades will do this and the other blade will do something different or stay flat. Anyways, it was really interesting, and he showed me a whole bunch of stuff about the helicopter. But you have to get out there, you have to get it warmed up. And what I'll give you just the surprises that I took away from it, because it felt like a nice slow ride on a 4-wheeler.
Okay.
Like, we flew a lot closer to the ground and a lot slower. And of course we were going a lot faster than it felt, but it felt like a nice idle ride on a 4-wheeler.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we flew up from the Jerome Airport. We went past Jerome Butte, but still below the top of Jerome Butte.
Oh.
Even though we were that close, and the airport's really close to Jerome Butte.
Yes.
So we were at about that level the whole way. And we flew out a little bit over the desert. We crossed the interstate. I have video on my phone going over Devil's Corral and Shoshone Falls, which was very cool because we approached it from upriver and from below the rim.
Okay.
So I mean, maybe this far below the rim, and we landed like 4 different times.
Okay.
Just look at that. Let's see if we can land right here. Right? You can just kind of do what you want. Yeah. It's really neat. And then we flew into town. We flew over my house. I texted my wife, and she dragged my son out to the front yard, and I have video of them waving up to the helicopter at us, which is really fun. He went out and showed me his place, and then we landed in his backyard, and he shows me these targets. Hey, these targets are where I sight my guns in, And anyway, so those were my big takeaways. Is how stable it felt. Because it was blowing. It was like 15-mile-an-hour wind last Saturday.
Okay.
And
I always wondered about helicopters in the wind.
He says it's better. It's better in the wind.
Because the uplift, maybe.
Because there's just enough resistance that it's hard to explain.
No,
but it was a lot more stable and a little bit of wind, and I didn't feel any wind at all. The helicopter, you could tell that the helicopter felt it, but because of how it acted in the wind. But for the most part, a helicopter isn't a tool of the wind. It makes its own wind. Yeah. Right. And so it really is just manipulating all the air around it. And when we took off, he pulled out, the helicopter's just on wheels, and you just grab the back of it and you just wheel it out like it's on a dolly. And some of them have electric dollies, of course, because they're a little bit bigger. But we didn't even go very far past where the hangar door opens. Right? I just thought, we're only 50 feet away. It just seems close. But as soon as it takes off from the ground, it just felt so stable. Just every move he made, it was just nice and slow and stable, and it was really cool. And
that's a good experience.
Yeah,
You know,
and
Sorry, go ahead.
he just told me about how ridiculous owning a helicopter was. He doesn't own one. But he goes, man, if I ever get a hell, they're just money pits. You have to do maintenance.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to do maintenance, and maintenance is not cheap.
Same with the airplanes. People I
Yeah.
followed on YouTube that are pilots that have their own airplanes, they talk about the same thing.
Yeah, but an airplane is useful. An airplane can get you places, right? It's the difference between having your car and a four-wheeler.
Oh, okay. So having your having your daily driver versus having the nice date vehicle, right? So
Not
like
even a
Cor-
daily driver. No, I mean, this is a four-wheeler.
No, I mean,
Right.
That's what I think we're trying to make the same.
Yeah, we probably are.
equivocation.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Equivocal statements?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make an analogy to mirror what you're saying. So yeah, it's the toy versus the actual vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, and it's really cool.
You know, I wondered about that because last year, and I realized it's on the phone that I'm recording with. I was walking the dog in my neighborhood here.
Yeah.
And I got over towards some houses that are over on the canyon rim. I'm over very close to the canyon rim. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what in the heck is that noise? And I look, as I get around this corner, it's a helicopter.
Yeah.
In the backyard of somebody's house over on the canyon rim.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's warming up. So when you said warming up earlier, I was like, oh yeah. So I saw this helicopter warming up, and as I got close to it, I stopped and I just hit record because I'm like, and this helicopter was not a small helicopter.
Yeah.
This helicopter was the equivalent size of, say, a life flight helicopter.
Okay.
But it wasn't a life flight helicopter. But it was just that size.
Yeah.
And it took off and it headed towards the Jerome Airport. That's the direction
wow.
it flew. So I don't
Okay.
know. That probably
That's what the other one looked like. Was like the life flight, but it was a big four-seater.
But was it
Nice.
brown? Tan?
Tan, maybe gray and blue.
I
forget.
could later maybe remind me after
Okay.
the podcast. I'll show you the video and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's this. Yeah. So
Maybe it is. But I liked it. We did see one coyote. He goes, it's fun to see the coyotes over the desert. And I thought, oh gosh, and we might see something. But when we landed in a bunch of different places and we flew over the canyon. And so we landed on the edge of the canyon, probably, I don't know, 10 feet, 20 feet from the edge of the canyon. Well, it's probably further than that. But we just off the edge of the canyon. He just likes to land, shut it down, look around, take a little break. Because you're never not flying a helicopter.
right.
Or a plane, when you put on autopilot, it's like, okay, I'll check the gauges in a minute. The guy, he says he watches a lot of Netflix when he's flying. Because it's just a lot of... I stare out the window.
There's a lot of automation in
A lot.
aeronautics.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. And but the helicopter's a different
Yeah,
different
different
beast.
beast, yep.
He did give me the stick once, but I was left-handed because I was recording with my phone, and I'm like, yeah, your aircraft. And I gave it back to him. But it felt really cool. And I would like to learn more, but it's such an expensive.
I remember watching a show with you back in the day. It was some sort of futuristic show, like a Popular Mechanics.
Yeah, the
type show.
Lamborghini thing.
And there was a small individual helicopter that
Yeah,
we watched,
personal
and they were
helicopter.
like landing it on a fence post. Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah, on a fence. I do remember that, and I thought about that. And now they're making other types of personal aircraft modeled off of the drone kind of setup.
right. There's a car out there now.
With big fans and enough that you could use them as a recreational vehicle.
Yeah.
Enough so you could legally fly them and scout for elk.
Speaking of which, there's a survey
Yeah.
that I saw come through in my email that I want to complete from the Idaho Fishing Game related to vehicles
Yeah.
and hunting grounds. So something along
Yeah.
those
Okay.
lines.
Okay.
So
Okay.
a motorized vehicle survey opinion.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, I have opinions.
Yeah. Yeah. I do too.
So
I do too. Very much so. I hope I've dove a little bit more into the classification of e-bikes.
okay,
Right. I don't know if I've talked to you much about it.
we talked a little bit about
Okay.
it.
There's just an e-bike where it's just a battery and a motor. It's a motorcycle, right? Then there's the kind where you have to pedal a little bit, or you can pedal to recharge it, right?
Yeah,
And that's a different class. And then there's the kind where it's only pedal assisted. You have to be pedaling
Right.
if you want the battery to work. And so that's a different classification. So we talked about the helicopter ride. I talked about the fitness book, which, by the way, with 189 days, listen to this. So this book had me thinking about some math. I'd like to lose 50 pounds, right? That's a nice round number.
Yeah.
But I've wanted that for years. So
Correct.
what this book said was, and it's stuff you already know, which is like, what works best is what's easiest to maintain. So, right, long period of time, and a diet that's easy to do is better than a harsh diet because you're just going to have more success over time.
And that's been my focus.
Right.
Primarily, yeah.
And if I want to lose 50 pounds, there's a numerical figure for that. And that's 50 times 3,500. There's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. Okay. So if I want to lose 50 pounds by elk season, I have to create 1,000 calorie deficit for 175 days. Because it's 175,000 calories that's in 50 pounds of fat. Anyway,
I'll
thanks
start
for the
tomorrow.
beer. Thanks for the beer. I start on Monday, actually.
I've been starting. I've suffered a couple setbacks with my efforts, but I haven't gotten too far off track. I've maintained, but
I suffered a setback yesterday.
Yeah.
I found the robin eggs at Fred Meyer. God, I love Easter candy.
My brain's like literal robin eggs. They had them at Fred Meyer.
You know what I'm talking about, huh?
Easter candy
Whoppers.
Okay, so I
with a candy.
I had
shell.
a small setback, but I don't think it was too egregious.
Okay.
Because if you want to talk about Easter candy,
yeah,
chocolate bottom peeps.
Ooh.
Are regular peeps are a no-go for me.
Oh.
But the peeps with the chocolate bottoms, that's what I
Yeah.
call them. I don't know what else to call them.
I bought some peeps too.
The chocolate bottom peeps are my Achilles heel with Easter candy.
Really?
And I brought 5 packages home. Now, hear me out. Hear me out.
Hear me out. I have one left. Hear me out. It's not one package. It's just one.
There's 5 people in my house, so I wasn't being selfish. But I forgot that Vesa hates peeps.
Yeah, and so do the other 3 kids. Bummer. Just kidding.
No, actually, I brought them all home, and the 3 boys consumed theirs like,
wow.
right? And so there's only 3 in a package.
Yeah.
And I ate mine too, and I was like, okay, and it didn't set me back at all. I actually, it was a nice little snack. But there's 1 package left, and the young one's like, Dad, is that for you or who? Because mom doesn't want it. And I'm like, well, I'll decide later. Let's talk about it later. So the next day I realized, okay, I don't really need it. I said, so why don't the 3 of you split the package?
There you go.
So
there you go.
I
That's
did a
good dad. Good dadding. Yeah,
so
yeah.
there was that. But it could have been, you heard where it started. It could have been a huge setback because I could have had 5 packages of
just the
chocolate
candy.
bottom
I go into Fred Meyer with the intention of buying nothing. Robin eggs, well,
hello, beautiful.
peeps. All right. And those different Reese's that just have a different ratio of peanut butter to chocolate. That's just nice and different.
No, and for our Valentine's dinner that we made on Saturday,
Yeah.
we made. I assisted. I was the sous chef.
Sure.
But Vesa made Julia Child's beef burgundy.
Okay.
Beef bourguignon.
Okay. And how's that?
It was highlighted in the movie Julia and Julia.
Okay.
It's the one big dish that she screws up, and it's a highlight in them. Anyway, it turned out perfect.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. But it also, with portion control, I didn't let myself get out of hand.
Right.
So, and since we're talking about odd food things, remember, I think I mentioned this last week or the week before, a big celebrity, I forgot his name, but he lost a lot of his weight by just eating chicken with hot sauce.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
anyway, things that I think of.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, different tactics. And we'll see. Like I said, there's 189 days
yeah,
until elk season. But man,
I got to get on some cardio. I know that.
it's yeah, I know. Same. We were talking about e-bikes for just a second.
Yeah, to circle back.
And since we're talking about bikes, Are we ready to talk about cougars? About mountain lions?
Well, we can. Yeah, let's ride on over to that category.
Yeah, there's something like I've read some more stuff on the Idaho Fish and Game website that we'll have to talk about tonight as well.
Okay.
But one of the things I read in the Grizzly in the Driveway, the return of bears to the crowded American West, is that just like fishing for salmon when they're spawning or steelhead when they're spawning, you're not so much trying to feed them, and they're not so much trying to eat, but their sense as predators, their sense of eating or their sense of attacking something just has to be pestered. And that's what the Idaho Fishing Game site website says, is that fishermen pester the fish into attacking.
Yeah,
and so this is what bicycles are to bears and lions. Pestering,
but it triggers instinctive drift to
yes,
to chase. To pounce.
So yeah, they're not exactly spawning. They're not exactly disinterested. They're not exactly just attacking to attack. They think, man, that thing's moving fast, but I bet I can catch it.
Yeah.
And there's something about being on a bicycle that's inherently dangerous in big predator country.
Yeah, we both submitted for our little folder here the same story.
Yeah. Okay.
Cougar attacks 5 cyclists on a Washington trail. One was hospitalized.
Wow. In Washington.
Yes.
5 cyclists. And did you read a little bit of this story?
I did. So apparently one of the cyclists was attacked. So the other cyclists fend off this cougar that's also attacking them while they're trying to fend it off.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the outcome of the cougar. I'm sure it wasn't good, but it didn't bode well for anybody. But it really, the deciding factor in my mind is it was the fact that they're on bikes. And it's not that we can really change anything. You can never predict where they're going to be. We know, and we've talked at length on this podcast, that cougars are quiet and they kind of sneak up on you, and you can never.
You wouldn't know if they were watching you or not.
Yeah.
For the most part, unless you got somebody watching you. So, yeah, that's what makes cats scary.
Yeah. Yeah, but interestingly enough, what makes them scary is movement. What makes them okay is barriers. And what I mean by that is we had footprints outside a tent, but that thin tent wall is all we needed.
And I wasn't worried at all.
I still never sweated that.
Never.
I tell people, like, are you worried? Are you concerned? No.
I know.
That's all I needed. I was more worried the day we were out in that same area, and I had the flu real bad. And I was like, I think I need to go back to the tent. So I went back down the hill, and I would sit down at a couple different spots just to rest. Because it's funny, I realized something was wrong. So I'm like, I'm going to go back and rest. But on my way downhill rather than uphill, my body's so tired, I would sit down and it wouldn't take me long to just doze off.
Yeah.
And then I would shake myself awake and I'd be like, oh. I was actually kind of nervous because we had seen the cat tracks.
Right.
And so that was, to me, more nervous than being in the tent. Being awake, I'm not nervous. But falling asleep without a barrier.
Yeah.
Because they're opportunistic beasts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope their cyclist is okay. And everybody else. It's traumatic. And ultimately educate, create awareness.
I did I did pull some stats from the Idaho Fish and Game website. Would you like to take a stab at how many mountain lions were harvested from the South Hills, Area 54, in 2022? I actually know the stats for 2021 and 2020 as well, but
14. Jeez.
14.
That was my next guess.
I think it was 11 in 2021 and 14 in 2020.
Wow.
So a good baker's dozen a year come out of 54.
Wow.
That's just 54.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that surprised me. That surprised me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think 170 some deer. There were more elk harvested in the South Hills than pronghorn.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah. I found that interesting. I think it was like 40 to 32.
I would like to get me some pronghorn.
Yeah.
I have a fond memory of pronghorn venison.
I wouldn't mind. We could still get some tags. There's still. I've been going over this reg book pretty good. Let me give you some more. Can I give you some more stuff from the reg book?
Yeah.
Idaho Fish and Game Reg Book. It's online. I dig through it and look for all kinds of interesting stuff for my radio program that I do on a country station here in town. One of the things I read this last week was the policies on roadkill.
Okay.
How can you? It's not harvest. A claim.
That would make sense. Like
there's
salvage.
Salvage. Thank you. How do you? How to file for a salvage permit, and if you find something or hit something, as of I think November 2018, if it's not dead, you can shoot it.
Oh,
you can dispatch it. That's a new law.
So an ethical dispatch. Interactions with animals, or collisions with animals with vehicles to be more ethical to the life. That's actually I like that.
I know, me too. I know. I thought it was always ridiculous. You got to call a game warden. You got to call a sheriff. They can't use their service weapon. They've got to. I mean, come on. The whole time this animal's suffering. So that's a new law. It's pretty cool, I think. But the salvage permit is pick it up, throw it in your vehicle, and you have 24 hours to report it, and 72 hours to file the claim on it. So you can pick it up and have it with you, and that goes for any animal, including upland game birds, any animal that you can legally hunt or harvest. So if there's a dead beaver, if there's a dead bear, if there's a mountain lion, if it's deer, elk, or even birds, if it's legal to hunt that species, you can claim it. You can salvage it as roadkill.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting.
That is pretty good. I
also found out through the same thing that I'm doing. Idaho fish hatcheries distribute 30 million fish a year into Idaho streams.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That is incredible.
You know, I'm glad that you're bringing this up because this is something I think about outside of the podcast that I never remember to bring up. The more and more I've seen about how fish are being released in the reservoirs, and the more in last year, we were fishing in a place where they regularly stock cutthroat. And that was part of this process for me because I'm like, oh, what are the fish that were here? And you can get the stock report.
Yeah,
for
and that's what I was looking at.
And it's like, how many creatures are after the fish in the water?
Other than human?
Yeah. Countless, right? Countless.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing that we have this program, or we would never have any fishing opportunities.
Yeah.
So thank you to those fisheries and the stocking program, because I would love to catch a natural fish. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But we don't live in a world where it's as realistic to catch because too many people are fishing and catching. We need this restocking program. So I've become more appreciative of those programs.
The and they give you a lot of details. So the latest, I gave the details on the latest in the Magic Valley, the latest stocking report, which was the 7th of February.
Yeah, I saw this recently too. We come
12 to 16 inch rainbow trout at the Filer Pond, almost 500 of them.
Oh, geez.
I know. Huh?
The Filer Pond.
The Filer Pond.
That's like the free one. That's
you have to have a license, but it's like it's okay. Everybody can catch a fish here.
Oh yeah,
come on out.
I've never caught a fish there,
and
I've only been there twice. I think
I have some video of Ozzy reeling in some fish. We'll go out there once a year or something. But and it's always fun. We have a good time. But I just found that fascinating that there's. I might be misquoting that 30 million, but that sounds.
I know that
right. There's a lot of bodies of water in this state.
You have all the tributaries. I mean, there's a list on the Idaho Fish and Game website that you can just kind of go through and see what they're stocking. When was the last time they've done it? They do several a year. It looks like in some places, especially heavily fished areas.
Yeah,
and so
the types of fish that they release. So it includes the minnows and stuff, which they release in the tens of thousands.
Right.
But most of the rainbow trout, most of the larger fish that they release are released into ponds that are meant to be caught. And it says that the trout are triploid, which means they can't even reproduce.
Oh, wow.
Like they're dependent on restocking. So I would wonder how that is for a wild river like where we caught those cutthroat.
Yeah.
Do they allow for spawning? Are they supposed to be there? I mean, I think they're supposed to be there.
Yeah.
But I would like to know more about the fisheries. Anyway.
Agreed.
And then one that I read today was the Idaho Bird Trail.
Okay.
You ever heard of that?
No.
It's right on the Idaho Fish and Game website, man. The Idaho Bird Trail gives you destinations per region. There's 4 regions in Idaho. The Southwest region is the one we're in, and there's almost 100 different specific locations. I think 94 specific locations designated for bird watching.
Oh, wow.
You ever done any bird watching?
Not yet.
It
Not
is-
intentionally.
It is so fun.
I've done bird watching, sitting on a hillside waiting for animals to figure
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
But other than that, I haven't stepped into that realm. But
I
there's a great movie
Yeah.
that plays into the hand called The Big Year, I think.
okay.
It's got Jack Black, Owen Wilson, and Steve Martin.
Oh,
And it's about bird watchers. It's actually kind of a silly comedy about bird watchers, and
Really?
they're trying to one up each other on how many birds you going to spot this year.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny movie.
It's a fun game.
Yeah.
Because you really have to be good at it. You can see 2 birds that look identical at a feeder. And that could be 20 feet away, but you pull binoculars up and you go,
Yeah.
"Oh, those are different species."
Yep.
Completely different. And you have to know the difference, and you have to be able to discern the difference before they flutter off somewhere. And it's incredibly difficult, and it's incredibly fun. And I'm sure I'll get harder into it when I can't hunt elk anymore, or when I have more time to go bird watching. But bird watching is fun. Like I said, like identifying plants is a very difficult for me. When you get up in the woods, I want to know everything about all the birds and all the bushes and all the bugs and everything. And we've learned a lot.
Yeah,
I wish we knew more, but we've certainly learned a lot.
I've certainly learned about some trees. I
Yeah.
know that's
Yeah.
been helpful.
It's been fun. It's been fun.
Learning about your area isn't just about learning the terrain. It really is as much about
Yeah.
learning about the vegetation.
And the rocks.
Yeah.
And the bugs and everything, the ecosystem, that's everything. And so sometimes those crunchy leaves, you know what? In early September, they don't make any sound at all. And 2 weeks later, they're crunchy and noisy as heck. And then if
Yeah.
it snows just a little bit, they're nice and quiet again. Anyway, so there's and I don't even know what that plant's called, and I should, because it covers the hillsides.
Yeah. It's super annoying.
Yeah.
That's what I call it.
Yeah.
Because it's crunchy. But we even found puff. What do we call them? I looked it up. There's a hillside where we go. If you hit it at the right time after a good rainfall, if the conditions are right,
Yeah.
they are puff mushrooms, right? There's a certain nut, but they look like big soccer balls.
Oh yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if you catch them in the right development, because actually they grow a lot back east apparently.
Okay.
But if you catch them at the right time, they'll be perfectly white and perfectly round, and you can slice them like steaks and fry them.
Yeah. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay, let's do that. It's probably easier to hunt than elk if they stay put.
I'll invite all the neighboring elk parties over and be like, I
Yeah.
got some steaks for everybody. Let's go.
Yeah. No, it's not even plant-based.
So I came across something that we talked about already, just kind of getting this out of the way.
Yeah.
Do wolf reintroduction programs restore ecosystems? We already talked about that.
Yeah, we did. We did.
So it was just a reiteration. It was kind of you had brought it up to my attention.
Yeah.
And then it showed up in my news
Okay,
feeds.
good.
And
So we just have more data on it.
and
Yeah.
really it reiterated all the points that you brought up, and it's there's more to the picture, which at the end of the day, that's kind of what we talked about. It's nice to go confidently with what we think is going on,
Right.
but it's nice to have more data to help us understand the bigger picture.
Well, you have two ends of the spectrum trying to paint the same picture. right? And you have a tree hugger over here saying, "Oh, it did everything and saved
Yeah.
everything," and you have the other side going, "It's ruining everything, all death because of this." And the answer is always somewhere in between.
And the article did sort of confirm, I think, some of the questioning I had with you, and it had, or some of the conversations we had, not that I had questioning with you, the willows.
Yeah.
And they cited that as the willows continue to restore, this will continue to help improve because the building of the dam without the beavers helped.
Yeah.
Right. But there's also the lack of the willows. So once the willows continue to grow, so it's a systemic issue. It's not just that we removed something and that systemically took a bunch of things away.
A negative feedback loop.
It's and so we need things to, as they slowly restore, you'll see it come back.
Yeah.
So
and it'll just take longer than it takes longer than it does to raise a beaver, because there has
generations.
It takes generations. Yeah, it's just going to be a longer comeback. So it can't become a positive feedback loop as well as it became a negative feedback.
Active restoration could be that we go out and we plant some willows and help that process along.
Yeah,
but it'll still take time. A cougar travels 1,000 miles from Utah to Colorado. Tell me more.
So we've come across some pretty epic stories of animals traveling great distances. There was a wolf in Alaska.
Yep.
There was a grizzly bear in Montana.
Was it 399?
No, that's just a famous one out of Yellowstone.
Gotcha.
The grizzly bear, I think it was Sue. I think they named her Sue or something. But she went on an amazing trek. What was that, 1,700 miles or something?
Yeah.
And the wolf, over 1,500 miles.
Yeah.
It was a long way. And a lone wolf at that.
Yeah.
And I guess,
which likely had toxoplasmosis.
Right, of course.
Possibly.
And now there's this mountain lion. So we think we know how animals behave. and when we talk about the expansion of wolves, and we've had a lot of activity on the TikTok of the wolf conversation that we had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And people still saying, "Hey man, I tried. I hunted those things for 3 years and never even saw one." Then somebody posts the statistic that 1% of wolf kills are hunters. They have to be trapped to be managed.
Yeah.
They have to be trapped. So anyway, I'm continuing that process. We'll let you know in
Yellowstone
March.
certainly has a nice pack of wolves.
Yeah.
There's a nice picture here. I think
there's 4 or 5.
There's a cool picture here though of Yellowstone.
Yeah. Right at
Old Faithful.
Right at Old Faithful. Yeah, some wolves moving through. And one of the great attractions of Yellowstone is that maybe you'll get to see some wolves. But even in Yellowstone, and I was there, right? I saw more bears than I saw wolves.
Yeah. Hey, question about wolves.
Yeah.
Does bear spray work on
them? Probably. But why would you need to?
Well, in case you're worried about running into what did you call it? An apex predator. Is that right? Would they be an apex predator?
Yeah, they're top of they would be top of the food chain if it wasn't for us. But they just leave humans alone.
Yeah. So according to this quick snippet I got here, bear spray will work against just about any mammal with eyes that might attack you.
With eyes. The mammals without eyes, forget it.
And so even a charging moose, it could work on.
Oh, okay.
But a wolf as well.
Well, according to Les Stroud, a charging moose is far more likely and far more dangerous in the northern woods than wolves or bears.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't... I don't want to run into a moose necessarily, but you told me when you were in the rainstorm in the middle of the night waking up and there was a moose right outside your tent.
Yeah, so actually that was... it was kind of rainy. It wasn't a big storm, but it was a cow and 2 calves.
Yeah.
And my buddy, we had backpacked in to that same junction. Yeah, so you knew where we were at.
Yeah.
And I thought I heard horse hooves because there's guys going in on horseback occasionally.
We run into them, yeah.
So I just peeked out, and yeah, sure enough, I have video of that. I have video of those moose somewhere.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Just going down the conservation trail here.
Yeah.
On Acquisition Mountain. Sorry, there's no context for anybody who
Nope.
heard that just now, but you're welcome. If you can figure it out, leave a comment. All right. the one person who viewed our video 8 times last week. Okay.
Yeah.
That was me.
Well, I was 3 of them.
Man busted for allegedly killing 42 elk.
Ooh.
Elk on the Elk podcast. Take notes, folks.
Ooh, where is this out of?
This is out of Washington State.
Okay.
The gentleman had been reported he'd been doing it for years, but he's selling them. It's an illegal sell situation. So killing the elk and selling it.
Was he selling the meat or selling the antlers or?
He was actually
Wow.
selling the whole animals, it seems like. Because in the article they said he was charging this much for a cow, this much for a bull.
Wow.
And he would take the animals down to Portland.
Really?
So he's crossing state lines.
Wow.
And so he's got some
He's in big trouble.
he's got some felonies coming, according
Yeah.
to their state law.
If
I
you see
remember right.
something, say something.
Yeah. And I don't have a picture for this, but CWD is on the rise worldwide.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to have my animal tested should I ever kill one.
So I found a really interesting TikTok. I don't know if I showed it to you about CWD. Like we don't know how it spreads.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of information we need to get tackled on this.
But yet, do we have any information that mass killing lessens CWD? But that's the CWD management program? It's just mass kill?
There is a very poor approach to the science of CWD.
Okay.
And I think the thing that's my opinion. I feel that there needs to be a more concerted effort. What really kind of chaffs me, chaffs? Is
Sure.
that right? Yeah. What really gets me on this is that it's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
It's been in the herds back east and the deer
Yeah.
herds, but it's been lackadaisical approach. Like mad cow disease, okay, yeah, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
We kind of know how that works, but the concern is that it's showing up so frequently. Again, evidence is lacking,
Yeah.
but the concern is still real. This thing, they call it the zombie deer disease.
Right.
It creates an animal that is unafraid of humans.
Right.
It creates a mad cow disease-like shaking
Right.
behavior. And it's possible that this could be passed to humans. That's the concern that is because
Right.
it's spreading
Right.
so readily now. So we don't know how it spreads. We don't know if it can be, but we're worried that it could be passed to humans. And the other thing is they gave an estimate, and I forgot. I should have taken a snapshot of this. I might not have been on my phone when I did it. A certain number of hunters have likely consumed this meat every year.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of time
Yeah.
if these things fall into the right place in terms of transmissible
Okay. Yeah.
situations. So
Interesting.
just I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but
I would
let's
like to know
be
more
aware.
about CWD.
Yeah.
And honestly, if they do a mass killing, they don't test for CWD until after they're done killing. They're not necessarily killing diseased animals.
Yeah.
They're just killing. It's really weird.
That's what they were doing up here.
Yeah,
up north.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And so the
Culling, they say.
culling. So the TikTok I saw just was asking questions about that.
Yeah.
What is the data from that? How many do have CWD? You know, is there a higher incidence before than after? Right? There's a lot of questions that I would like answered. And we will follow, and we have been following CWD throughout the podcast. Because I'd heard it growing up my whole life, I always thought it was a well understood disease.
Yeah. But
And
recently,
it is not. And you
Yeah.
start asking questions and you realize, oh, well, it could be this and it could be that.
yeah, I think that was what I fell into. And that's why
Yeah.
this recently made me go, wait a minute. Because we have heard about it a long time.
Yeah.
And now that it's encroached into Idaho, suddenly it's like, oh, well, what do we know about? Oh, wait, what? It's been, how long have we
Yeah.
known about this and we don't know anything about it?
Yeah.
So anyway, just food for thought. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's the right analogy, but anyway.
To be continued.
Yes, very much to be continued. I don't have the numbers on this, but it's a really rad looking picture, so I apologize. Just a Northwest Minnesota brute A hunter killed a bull elk poised to take the top state non-typical hunting record. And
In Minnesota?
in Minnesota.
Ooh.
And this non-typical beast. He looks like he looks more like a moose in the way he's laying down.
Yeah.
Oh. See if I can zoom in.
Oh, you're gonna give me a peek? Give me a peek. Oh wow. Yeah. That's very thick.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. In Minnesota.
Minnesota.
How about that?
Very cool, non-typical. Congrats, guy. It looks like there's some interesting tracks, almost as if there's an animal with a lame leg or something.
Yeah.
dragging.
So I'm gonna give you a minute to think about this. I thought about it and I was wrong. And as soon as I read the comments, I go, oh yeah, that's okay. I get it. Yeah. Anyways, I'll give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count.
Well, it said an animal with a lame leg, but it actually looks more like could be a rabbit of some kind.
Yeah.
Because you can see where the back legs. Wolverine.
So no, you're wrong. So I thought beaver,
Okay.
right? Because there's dragging
It is
its tail,
yeah.
right? There's paw prints, but he's dragging his tail. No, it's an otter.
Ah.
They slide on their bellies
Okay.
and wiggle their feet, right? And they'll stand up and walk and get a run and slide on their bellies and then get up and run and slide on their
fun.
bellies. Now you get it.
yeah. I would have never got that.
Yeah,
so.
I never would have either. That's why I'm gonna go look through the comments. But as soon as you read otter, you're like, oh yeah, I can see that.
I think there's just one more left, and it has to do
Okay.
with 2 more. Do you want to do the fur trade or underwater megastructure?
You know what? We can do underwater megastructure. This is pretty recent news.
Yeah.
And it was so I listened to the story, and it's a prehistoric, previously undiscovered megastructure. I mean, built by humans in prehistory, and it's underwater. So as the earth has warmed over the past 12,000 years, the lake, the Baltic Sea, I think is where it is.
Okay.
The Baltic Sea has risen to cover this megastructure. And some college students went out. Well, some college students with their professor went out.
Yeah.
And they discovered it, and they started looking into it. And they didn't find out anything until they talked to a paleo archaeologist.
Okay.
No, it's a different
Well,
anthropologist.
okay.
A paleoanthropologist.
A specialist in the field that would know what it is.
Right. And what it is for hunting. It was a barrier so they could drive animals towards the water, knowing that the animals were hot and needed to drink. They could drive the animals towards the water and corner them in this barrier.
Okay.
So they could get a drink, but they couldn't get away. And they could go in and they could kill the animals. Whatever those were. They were large deer or elk or something like that.
Stag deer.
But yeah. So anyways, that cool old megastructure was used for hunting.
That's crazy.
So, and I know when I think megastructure, I'm thinking the pyramids. I'm thinking even Mayan, Egyptian, or what's that other one? In England.
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge. So that is a different kind of megastructure. So those ones are a little more religious in nature.
Right.
So that's what I automatically thought was, it's like, the
I think the reason why, because I saw this article too.
Yeah.
And I think I passed it up because it said megastructure. My brain goes Stonehenge underwater, but I'm like, they don't look like Stonehenge. Move along.
I know. Same here. But still, I was like, interesting, because there was no new episode of Oak Island this week.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they didn't have one. I just, because a week ago, and I could have brought this up last week on the podcast. A week ago, they robbed me of the best 30 seconds of my week. The episode just ended. They didn't say, "Hey,
that's
next
right.
week on Oak Island, we find it."
That they did that twice so far this season.
Yeah, they usually do it once around the holidays because they have to skip a week.
Yeah.
So anyway, so when I think about that stuff, I think, when you go back to even the 1500s, 15 to 1700s, the sea levels were different.
Yeah.
And what were they at Oak Island? I don't think they've ever talked to us about that. And I'm upset about it.
I agree.
Yeah.
That is one of my biggest complaints. I'm like, how in the heck are all these things supposedly there if the water line is where it's at anyway?
Right. And the water line wasn't where it's at, but they never talk about it.
Yeah. So
all right, History Channel, get it together, will you?
be more historical.
I don't care if the Ark of the Covenant is there. Okay.
I need to know.
Why don't I know where the water was?
It's funny. It's good. We're not the only ones with this question.
Good. Yeah. I'm sure we're not.
I'll consider boycotting the next season. Probably not.
I know they're going to find it next season.
This is
pretty
bad.
sure.
This is a modern gold fever.
Oh yeah.
But I don't have to go out and dig. I just have to watch other people do the work.
That's right.
But I come back every week for it.
They're all over on YouTube and TikTok. They're out mining and they're out doing some crazy adventure stuff.
Yeah.
There's guys finding all kinds of ruins down in the Southwest region.
What does it do for their mentality? Because they have that other show and they go out and they find all these treasures and all this stuff with other people. And it's like, let's go back to our dirt hole in Canada and see what we can't find this year. But to be fair, they are finding some cool stuff.
I know. Every single day, every single week, except this week. Right?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm still going to look, but I'm glad you brought that up because usually when there's a week off, I'm not paying that much attention. So Draven and I are the only ones that watch it. And so when it's like the weekend, Sunday or something's rolled around, I'm like, hey, it's time for Oak Island. And he's like up in his room, like, come down for Oak Island on my phone.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And so he comes down and I'll be like, there's no new episode, I don't think. Did we watch this? So I'll pull up the recent. And so I'm glad you told me because maybe I can avoid that this time. The confusion of... Where's the episode? Why aren't they giving me my stuff?
What's happened? I need to know next week they find it.
I need to stream this for free, but it's always the syncing of the audio and the video is always off.
Oh, is it?
So we're always watching it because I'm casting it. If it's on my phone, that's one thing, but I cast it.
Oh.
And the casting causes the audio to unsync, and it's so annoying because it gets progressively worse. It starts off just fine, then every commercial breaks, it comes back, and it comes back, and it's like 5 seconds off, 10 seconds off, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Do you ever just reset your phone and just start over?
I try. It doesn't work. It's crazy. I don't know what it's.
Oh.
I think it's a History Channel app.
Interesting.
Maybe. Okay. I don't know. It's really not that big a deal, though, because it's more background noise. Anyway, because we put it on and they're like, oh, nope, they didn't find anything. Okay, what were we talking about?
Right.
Last but not least, $1,200 Bobcat pelt.
A single Bobcat pelt worth $1,200.
Wow.
Out of Whitehall, Montana.
What's up with that? What makes a $1,200 pelt?
I don't know. I'm dying to find out, though. I mean, you can see there the guy has, another 10, 15 furs behind him.
Yeah.
There's plenty of furs, and the guys come by and grade them. They come by and look at him, and if you get a good, healthe cat, he ate well right when it got cold, and his fur came in. I don't know.
You're probably not too far off with all of that.
Yeah, I've read, and there's probably 3 times as much.
Yeah.
To look at how it was skinned and how it dried, and if it was tanned and how it was tanned, and anyways, so I like to see a robust fur economy. We need to manage predators, bobcats, coyotes, wolves, mountain lions, although they're considered big game. We need to be able to manage those predators, and I want those guys that are out there trapping and hunting these things to have a worthwhile occupation, right? To have to make it worth their while to do that because they're helping us out, and to see them go for $1,200. Now I'm thinking I think I need at least $3,000 for a good wolf pelt.
Yeah,
like, man, you got it on layaway? Just kidding. Anyway,
I'm trying to think of something clever to say to that.
I just want to lay it away till elk season.
Anyway, but that's it in the conservation news, or I guess we say conservation news in the news headlines.
In our conservation roundup.
Yeah, thank you.
I just called it a conservation roundup.
Yeah, that's catchy. Today on Conservation Roundup during the elk season podcast.
Yeah, so there is a little bit more to talk about.
Okay,
except it's kind of a bummer to talk about.
Okay.
And that is Destination Elk.
With all due respect, Destination Elk, you lost me this season.
Yeah, it's been tough for them. It's been tough. They didn't do the teams. They're not going. They're trying to fill. They're trying to fill enough hours.
Yeah.
And enough content time, and they're just not. And they don't have.
I would
all
imagine that the logistics of what they did last year, which is really cool, it's really really hard.
Well, they've done it a few years.
Well,
They've done it for a few years, having a bunch of different teams. They've done it in different ways.
yeah.
But this year it's just been Jacobson and Donnie and now his son, and I know they have some other stuff going on.
Yeah.
But anyway,
But it's not been as thrilling.
so it's lost a little bit of shine, especially with Jacobson missing 2 shots
yeah.
and the way he did. It's tough. It's tough for Hunter.
No, not taking anything away from him. I've still never
Because he
killed
showed
a
it.
beast.
At least
Yeah.
he showed it. At least, so respect for him for that.
Yeah.
But- and it's a bummer.
Yeah, it's not an easy. It's
Not-
not an easy hobby.
Sport.
Free meat is expensive.
189 days until elk season.
I bought a freezer last year that I was supposed to fill.
That's optimistic. That's not optimistic. That is confident.
Thank you.
You have to have 100% confidence.
I just broke it in lightly, so now this
Yeah.
year is the real year.
You got a Costco membership. I'm not worried about your freezer.
Anyway, so
All right.
that's it. I mean, there wasn't much to follow up with elk.
No, there wasn't.
101, but-
Well, I'll still watch it,
Yeah.
but we'll see where it goes.
Anyway,
Have a good week.
cheerio.
Goodbye.